All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday to you. You know what? Middle of the night, I couldn't sleep, and what went through my mind was the age-old question. And I don't know why this is a question, but it is. And I've talked about it before, and I'm going to talk about it again. And that is, does wood matter in an electric instrument? There are some people that don't think it matters. Here's my take on it. I had a chance to go to a Taylor Guitars clinic, and they lined up about 10 guitars, and they were the same model. Half of them were the same model, just with different woods, and then the other half were different body shapes. And it was amazing when they went from guitar to guitar to guitar how different the tone was. And so now, is the average audience person going to be able to hear a difference when there's a band? No, they're not. I couldn't even hear a difference when there was a band surrounding that instrument. But the fact of the matter is what we hear as tone is mirrored in the response of the instrument. You know, the wood damps certain frequencies or absorbs them, and it reinforces other frequencies through resonance. And so how the instrument feels is very similar to how it sounds. So even though you can't hear the difference, maybe can't hear the difference live in a band context of the subtleties of the differences of woods, you will definitely feel them, and that's going to affect your performance. So for sure, wood matters in electric instruments. So we got a couple of questions that we'll start with from the last live, as we're waiting on new questions to come in.
So Sheldon, I want to move it to that's not coming to your head, the guitar.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So the first question is from Matthew Borbo. Can you make an afterburner with a Csa body? If not, is there a specific reason why? You know what? We can. And I think we've had discussions on this at our shop. And so if you want one, I'm going to say yes right now, and we'll make it happen for you. You'll need to have whoever you purchase it from talk to our salesperson, Billy, and we'll make it happen. Radius on your custom shop basis. Mathematically, the ratio should be the same as the widening of the string spacing for even action across the neck, right? Very good point. As a matter of fact, I was not a believer in compound radiuses for the longest time, and it wasn't until I started CADing things out that I started to realize that in order to have a straight path underneath each string, the radius of the fingerboard had to match the path of the strings. And so it became very clear that the only way to do it was to do a compound radius, and that is absolutely dictated by the taper of the strings. And so even though our compound radius seems kind of radical, it is mathematically correct, and anything less than that with the same taper is probably not so correct. But it's string basis, 6-string basis. So they're not going to have as much of a compound radius as a 5-string bass would have. Matt Spark is asking, any more news on if we might see a Super P import? What would be different with a domestic? So I don't want to share too many details on the possibility of a Super P import, but if we were going to bring one out, we'd have to simplify it a little bit. We'd have to make it easier to sand. We'd have to slim down the electronics a little bit. Maybe a single pickup with 2 coils, so you could have the options of series parallel. Maybe a single humbucker with 2 coils, of course, then you could have series parallel or single. So there are a couple of options there. The real trick is, how do you provide performance value at a lower price? Everybody's trying to do the same thing. It's not just us. Everybody's trying to figure out how can we be more efficient with our materials and more efficient to get the customer the most performance for the least amount of money. And so that's our focus there. And we've got some pretty good ideas that we may bring out soon. Jamie's asking, the foundation is the Super J. I'm still dreaming about that though. Tough call. Super J, Super P. Why don't you let us know? Tell us in the comments. Jeremiah's asking, oh, Super P again, in a 6-string one day, maybe please. You know, the challenge with a 6-string on that Super J style body is the balance. The headstock's already pretty big. Balance on a 5-string is look at our Super J body, 5-string body, but the actual upper horn has been stretched about 3/4 of an inch just to make it the whole bass balance better. A 6-string, that would have to be even that much more. So I have some ideas that we could do a 6-string J relatively easy, but it would require something that nobody's ever seen before in terms of tuning. So we'll have to prototype that out. And to be honest, 6-string Js are not something we get a lot of requests for, but we will do it eventually. CPT Boom Boom wonders, would we ever make guitars? Well, that's how actually we didn't start with guitars. We started with guitar necks, and those evolved into guitars, which evolved into basses, which eventually ended up being just basses. But yeah, we'd love to be making guitars again. Our problem right now is that we are so backed up on basses that we just don't have time to commit to guitars. But once we get caught up on basses, absolutely, we'll venture into guitars.
You can see some questions here.
Jimmy is asking, what is a compound radius? Well, that's a good question, Jimmy. If you took piano, or at least if you took piano from the teacher I took from, she talked about playing as if you were holding oranges. So your fingers are curved. And that is much better for the joints and allows you to put more pressure on the keys. Well, the same concept applies to guitars, and your hand is like this. And if you have a perfectly flat fingerboard like a classical guitar, on an electric guitar where the string tension is much higher than a classical, that can be very hard on your joints. And so it's just easier to play your board if it has a nice radius on it. Well, okay, so there's a couple of ways of doing it. One would be to have the same radius all the way down the fingerboard. So if you've got a really tight radius at the nut, then you'd have a really tight radius at the bridge. What happens? Well, the left hand's fine, but the right hand has to play like this around that radius. So what a compound radius does is the radius starts to flatten out as it gets towards the bridge. So now your right hand is playing more in a vertical up and down motion, while your left hand has that easier, tighter radius. And there's more to it than that, but that's essentially what's going on. Tighter radius at the nut, flatter radius at the heel or at the bridge. Jean-Marc is asking, do you have in the works a lefty model in the near future, 4 or 5 string made entirely in Canada, please? Open even to a custom build. Unfortunately, the answer is no to that, and the reason is just the crazy amount of tooling that we need to make that happen. It's not just tooling, it's programming, and then it's fixtures to hold the bodies and necks while we're working on them. At this point, we are not able to keep up with the demand on our engineering department to provide enough forward momentum just to service the existing models. So doing a left-handed is just not in the cards right now. Fortunately, we do have left-handed versions available in the combustion and NG, and they're awesome. And we've just come up with a couple of tweaks that might make them even more awesome. So keep posted on that. John Montalbano, how you doing, John? Is asking about a 6-string D-Rock. Don't really have plans for a 6-string D-Rock, but now that you mention it, that would be pretty darn cool. Let me think about that. I think that'd be really cool. With the D-Rock, no problem with balance, I don't think, because of the way we've attached the pins in the back and the way we've played with the center of gravity on that bass. It really opened up a lot of areas for us to correct balance issues. John Worthington is asking, how many Strat style guitars did you make? I have number 11 and it is awesome. Oh, cool. Man, I don't know if you're local, John, or not, but I'd love to see that guitar again. Not many of them survived, and man, I can't think there'd be that many of them. Probably only a couple of dozen, maybe, yeah, a couple of dozen of those, a couple of dozen Tele styles, and that was about it for guitars. John is asking how easy, whoop, that slipped by, would it be to modify and import and put the custom bridge on it? Are you talking 4-string or 5-string, John? Keep watching, because we may have an announcement at some point in the near future. Love to be able to address that for you. Jimmy's asking, oh, thanks for the explanation. Awesome, Jimmy. Any questions, feel free to post them in the comments again. Josh is saying +1 for roasted maple. I missed the original question for that, but I'll talk a little bit about roasted maple. I think it's really cool. I love the color of roasted maple, and to me, that is the strongest reason to use it, because it would give you that vintage look. But as you know, from a technician's standpoint, especially on maple fingerboards, when the fret ends eventually stick out, and the fret ends will stick out if you let the guitar or bass get too dry. Metal doesn't shrink when the humidity drops, but wood does. So that results in fret sprout. And so the technician has to very carefully file or sand the ends down to the surface of the finish. Well, modern guitar neck finishes are so thin that it's almost impossible for him to do that without cutting through the finish into the wood. Now, if it's roasted maple, that's not that big a deal. He can just touch it up with clear and it's done. If it's a shaded finish, man, you've got a problem on your hands, because now your nice vintage ambery neck has these white stripes on the edge because you've cut through the finish. So that's one of the reasons why our necks are left in their natural color, is because we don't ever want somebody to have to deal with that. And so that's why our necks are quite pale looking. It's not just because I am, but sorry, joke. But that's one of the reasons we would look into roasted maple. Tone-wise, we've tried it, and the tone didn't really knock my socks off. I wasn't real knocked out by the stiffness. And we didn't really test the stability. I don't think it would be as stable as everybody says it is, but we'd have to test that for me to actually say that was the case. Rasmus is saying, hi Sheldon, have you considered making an NG3 5-string in matte black? Yes, and that's a very cool idea. I should put that on my notes and we could come out with it. I think that'd be super cool. Yeah. Thomas O'Urban. Hey, how are you doing, Thomas? Hello, Sheldon. Thomas from Ireland here. Just wondering, are there any updates on the headless model? Not right now. Have been working on it, and we're looking forward to doing a 3D print to proof of concept, and we'll see where that takes us. Right now, the main focus is on 1 or 2 other models, and we'll do those first before we go any further nationally. I remember when the shop was on Broadway in Saskatoon. Yeah, hey, thanks, Matt. As a matter of fact, I miss the Broadway days. Broadway is such a cool area, and we really enjoyed being there, and we're there for a long time, but we're loving the new shop too. And thanks for your comment. Corey Matthews, any future plans with dark glass? Yeah, actually, we have one in the works. I can't talk about it until we've finished testing it, but it is kind of cool, and it is something you've never seen from us before. So I'm excited to be able to share that once we've signed off on it. Andy Griffiths is saying, hi, Sheldon. Good to hear you received the NG3 6-string. Do the tone controls only work with the active dark glass preamp activated? Okay, so Andy's asking if the active tone controls on the NG3, but this will include the combustion as well, if they only work in active. And the answer to that is yes. And the reason is that active controls, they are controlling the preamp. So they're boosting and cutting within the preamp itself, which requires power. And when you bypass the preamp, you're also bypassing the EQ controls. Now, the exception of that to that is the Glockenklang preamp, which we use on our Canadian models. Its treble control is half active, half passive. So the passive is always cutting, and when you boost, then it kicks in the active portion. So if you switch over to passive with the Glockenklang preamp, you are still able to roll down your treble. It's a super cool system. It's really interesting how they did that. Now, we also did a similar system, but we did it completely different way, and that also worked really cool. But we no longer offer that option on our bases because Glockenklang does it. Patrick Stockdale is saying, any chance Dingwall will release a fretless combustion model? That's a good question. Interested in Dingwall fretless basses. If you go onto the Dingwall Facebook group yesterday, a technician named Bruce Jacobs just finished doing a fretless conversion. To be honest, we don't sell enough fretless basses across all of our lines to come up with a fretless combustion or NG. But take a look at what Bruce did. He did a beautiful job. Mo in California, Mo's guitar repair, he can also do fretless conversions. It's not as big a job as you'd think, and these guys are they're like bass repair ninjas, and so they would do an amazing job. I would talk to either one of those guys for sure. Morgs is saying, greetings from New Zealand. Hey, Morgs, nice to be chatting with you. There are no Dingwall dealers here. Any chance this will be happening anytime soon? You know, we have been talking to somebody in Christchurch in the past. Man, it's been a year since I recall somebody mentioning them. I don't remember the name of the dealer, but who would be the best bass dealer to talk to in Christchurch? Would be very interested in picking up that conversation again. You know, New Zealand is one of those countries that I have a lot of respect for. The Britain motorcycle and just the attitude of New Zealanders of just doing it yourself. I don't know if it's because of the remote location, but it just seems like there's a lot of innovation coming out of New Zealand. So super cool. Love to be. Frederick Dingwall. Hey. Dingwall, sorry. Rather, will the D-Rock have dive with a standard Ernie ball strap? No, it will not. The one thing you'll have to do is the D-Rock system is designed around Dunlop strap locks. So those come with the instrument. The one thing you have to do is you have to mount the Dunlop, the neck side Dunlop strap pin reverse, and so that the strap hangs down and then plugs into your bass. But any strap will work with that as long as it can accept the Dunlop strap locks. John Worthington is saying, so if you heat and super dry necks before doing final fret and end prep, can you prevent fret ends from ever protruding? Yeah, in theory that would work. Probably, I'm not as dry as you'd want to take it before it's split and then let it acclimate back up. I would imagine it would be 6 months. So that would not be very production friendly. The other thing is that you wouldn't want to level the frets when the neck is bone dry because the wood doesn't dry perfectly evenly. So you're going to see humps and bumps as it dries down. You don't want to sand those into the fret tops. But it is a good idea, and it is something that we've thought about, but just went, oh man, we would not be able to do that in our shop at least. Randy Party is saying, I know you like cars. Are you an F1 fan? That new Aston Martin green would look lovely on a Dingwall. Absolutely would. I'm not as big an F1 fan as most Europeans are, but I can't believe how exciting the sport is, and I'd love to be a little bit closer so I could see that kind of thing in live action, like actually be at the race. That'd be an amazing experience. Maybe someday. Braden, hi Sheldon. How is that orange PRS CE24 treating you? How you doing, Braden? I love that guitar. It sits next to me in my living room. I'm actually thinking about refinishing it in matte gold, but it's a great guitar. PRS make fantastic guitars and basses as well, and they're an amazing company. I toured them actually, it was exactly a year ago. I toured the factory. Everybody at that factory was just like amazing. Like, what a wonderful company, what wonderful people. Just a great company, including Paul himself. Matthew Connor. Frederick, my D-Rock bass has absolutely no neck dive using a simple wide leather strap. Thanks, Matthew. I'm glad you're having that experience. Stan Cartwright. Hey, Sheldon, I was wondering if I got a D-Rock 4-string and want to tune it BEAD, would I have to file the nut to accommodate the larger B string? Yes, you'd actually have to file all of the nut slots to accept the larger string, but you only have to do that once. And the D-Rock 4-string actually works very well tuned BEAD. So what we recommend is our 5-string set. I know it's a little more expensive because you're buying a G string that you don't need, but the cost of a G string is very small, so it's not as expensive as it seems. Our standard 5-string set, throw away the G and just use the BEAD strings on your D-Rock 4-string will work amazing.
We had a playlist where you can.
I was mentioning that we do have a video on that. It talks about low tuning or down tuning and using thicker gauge strings. It is very important. Like, I absolutely warn you against not trying to squeeze a B string into an E string slot. It will blow the end of the nut out. So hopefully I can save you that grief. Bobby Fernandez. Hey, Bobby, how you doing, man? Hi, Sheldon. I hope you and the family are doing well. What up, Felipe? Miss you guys. We miss you too, Bobby. Yeah, man, it's been over a year since we've seen you. So I hope you're well, and love to come down and visit you in San Diego as soon as it's cool to travel. Frederick, Matthew, I really prefer the simple ones. Alexander Faye Keller. Hey, Alexander, how you doing? I can't say I can't say now, but I just wanted to say hello and wish you all the best from France. Thank you so much. I still remember meeting you several years back at our clinic in Paris, and it was a real treat getting a chance to meet and talk to you. Super J, if I recall correctly, Blue. Jimmy Clifton, have you ever thought about MIDI pickups in combustion with regular pickups? Is there even a demand for it? We haven't actually thought about piezo pickups. MIDI pickups. It would probably require piezo pickups, and that is the reason why not. We haven't had anybody actually ask for MIDI. There is Irvin Visser has installed the Roland system on his bass, and he's pretty happy with it. He's done some demos. So check out the Dingwall Facebook group, and Irvin's on that group, and from time to time his bass shows up, and I'm sure he'd love to answer any questions. He's a really creative guy. He's modified the heck out of his bass, and he's done great work. Frederick, cool. Thanks for the answer. Dingwall is our Scandinavian spelling of the surname. Isn't that interesting? You know, from what I understand, I haven't dug too deep into my family history, but I believe the Dingwall clan actually came from Scandinavia, and I believe they emigrated to Scotland, and then from there everywhere. Nice to meet you. Very cool. Mats is asking, what do you think about open pore finishes? I really love when the grain is both seen and can be felt. Well, there's a couple of things. The open pore finish needs to be very thin in order for it to look proper. That thin finish is obviously, you have to be more careful with it, but it also changes the tone of the instrument. So you'll find that an open pore finish, especially on swamp ash, will sound darker than if you were to spray it with a thicker finish and sand and polish it to a gloss. So gloss finishes actually sound brighter than open pore finishes, just naturally. The other thing about it is that one cool thing is that you save the weight of a gloss finish. It's interesting, but there is a measurable difference in weight between the exact same body with an open pore finish and one with a gloss finish. The gloss finish will be heavier by, I think, roughly 50 grams, maybe a little bit more, between 50 and 100 grams. And that's something that the Germans did in Grand Prix racing. Was they chose the color silver for their national color, because they just polished the aluminum on the car bodies and saved the weight of the paint. And that made their cars 10 pounds lighter, probably. Very cool. Those smart Mercedes guys. Daryl Adolph, have you considered a smaller body base while keeping a full-scaled neck? No. That is a good question. And to tell you the truth, I can't really think of a good reason right off the top of my head, but that is something that I've thought of in my mind and drew something in my mind and just didn't proceed with. There's a certain medium-sized body that I can't get my head around not doing it that way. Andy Griffiths is asking, any future plans with Nolly? Where do you go after the NG2 and NG3? Well, the NG2 was called the NG2 to leave room to go to an NG3 or down to an NG1. And I suppose you could go to an NG4 if you wanted. But so that gives you a bit of a hint as to where things might head in the future. And so there is room for that line to grow. And that is our most popular base. And so we do have plans to, to offer more variety. Martin Worth is saying, Sheldon, thanks for the D-Rock Gulf Oil custom for my 60th birthday. That was a fantastic base. We really enjoyed building that base, Martin. Great job including the Hellboy Dark Glass. You are the only one other than Rob Vanderloop that actually has that option. So I hope you're enjoying it. Hey, yeah, actually, I'd love some feedback. I know how Rob feels about it, but Martin, I'd love to hear how it's working for you. Phil Noble, have you considered an acoustic multi-scale bass guitar? Yes, actually I have for a very long time too. And I was saving an Ovation guitar body to experiment with. One of the problems with, one of the problems for me with multi-scale is I like the tone of the longer scale. And so on an acoustic guitar, if you notice where the bridge is, it needs to be relatively in the center of the largest area of the top in order to drive that top like a speaker cone. And so the trick is, how do you drive that top without the neck being in the next province or in the next state? So that was one of the hurdles. I came up with a concept that just hadn't had time to prototype it. Maybe you'll see something in the future. John Worthington, Sheldon, remember, I do have that 1998 six-string Prima, which has both the MIDI and piezo. Yeah. That's I remember that bass very clearly, and that was the only one we ever did. And but it was a very fun project. It was a real challenge, and I'm glad it's still being enjoyed. I think the original owner was Dean. I can't remember his last name. Barolia. Yeah. He spec'd that bass out. Very cool. Patrick Stockdale, thanks for answering my question. I'm considering placing a custom shop order for that fretless. Just wanted to be sure that Dingwall will not be releasing a combustion fretless model. Okay, yeah. So you can be assured that we will not be doing that. Brendan Cox. Oh, and I hope you enjoy. Your fretless when you get it. I think you will. Brendan Cox. Hey Sheldon, how thick are your necks on a 4-string compared to, say, a Fender? My thumb bends right back, so I need a thick neck. That's a good question. It depends on the neck. So actually, no, it doesn't, because we don't do 4-string Zs anymore. So that's a good question. Felipe, do we have that information on our website? I think we might. I believe it's 20 millimeters thick. So
yeah, that's on the each model has
okay
information.
Apparently, Brandon, on our website, if you dig, there will be the specs, nut width and neck thickness. From memory, it's either 20 or 21 millimeters thick, and so that is similar to Fender. Fender's necks varied so much over the years. We are more on the thinner side of necks, so it's definitely not a baseball bat feel by any stretch of the imagination. That would be a very good question to either the Dingwall Facebook group or the Dingwall Club on TalkBase, and just ask a couple of our members what they think, because a lot of our customers have Fender bases as well as our bases, and they'd be able to give you an A/B comparison. Daryl saying, being a bassist in a wheelchair, that would be a good thing. Yeah, I see where you're coming with that. I'll put some thought into that, Daryl. Thanks for the suggestion. Dan Veal, hey Sheldon, I appreciate that there is a production cost to be taken into consideration that probably prices the design out of plans, but are radius pickup shells possible on 3X models, thus making a large ramp playing area, if that makes any sense? Absolutely, it makes sense. How would you feel about 3D printed shells? It would be super doable with a 3D printed shell. They would look 3D printed, which sometimes looks a little, well, backyard, but we could easily do something like that because we use a split coil. The split coils could be put into very cool. The reason we don't do it with our injection molded shells is because they're all at different angles, and so that arc would be different depending on which model it would be used. And injection molding is crazy expensive, but 3D printing would be totally doable. PM me after this. I'll see what I can do. Matt Preachers, hello Sheldon. Is the Hellboy will be available in March in EU country? Unfortunately, it's slightly delayed, so it will not be March, but it will be very soon afterwards. And we'll be doing an announcement on that soon. We just need shipment details, and we're working on that right now. So this far away. Malik, when the D-Rock standard 5-string be available in Europe? This far away. They'll be coming in the same shipment as the Hellboys. And man, it has been an amazingly complex project. But the results are going to be amazing. And I'm glad we took the time. I'm not glad it took as long as it did, but I'm glad that we took the time to make sure it was right out of the gate. Nativ, will you recommend the D-Rock for 90s style metal? Felipe, we just lost that comment. 90s style metal, Pantera style, B tuned to 4-string. I run a Dark Glass X pedal, and looking for that cut the mix fat sound. Absolutely, I think the D-Rock is like the perfect bass for that. Not only do you have that huge, super huge fat tone available, but you can also like tighten it up and run the middle pickup by itself and get kind of that gnarly, grindy P tone. I think it's probably the best bass in our lineup for that kind of tone.
There's the bass channel that they've been doing on the Metallica.
Yeah, so check out the bass channel on YouTube. They've been doing a bunch of Metallica playthroughs using a D-Rock, and you'll be able to hear exactly how the bass sounds. I think he's more of a fingerstyle player. You play with a pick, he plays with fingers, but you'll at least hear how the bass sounds along with Metallica.
And Andrew Baina is playing with a pick into a more modern concept.
Gotcha. Look for Andrew Baina. He's actually on our YouTube channel, and he's playing a D-Rock with a pick using that distorted grungy tone. Mark is saying, hi Sheldon, are you considering a D-Rock 6-string version? Well, I was till today, until John came up with the idea. I think that'd be pretty cool, actually. So I'll put that on the bucket list of designs for. Currently, I have 8 models that are lined up, waiting for design time. So we'll add to that, and that'll be 9 models. But that would be super cool. I think if we were going to do that, though, and I was looking at the D-Rock last night, if we were going to do a 6-string, what we'd have to do is we'd have to eliminate the center channel, that raised channel. Let me know your thoughts on that. So now the top would be just a smooth single radius instead of the radius with a raised section and a radius. Let me know what you think about that. That is how the Hellboys are going to be. But in order to do a six string, because of the length of the pickups, we'd need to eliminate the ridge on those. Sonics is saying, will you ever make a Super J6? That is down the road as well, and it will be kind of a tweaked out Super J6. So keep your eye on this channel, and as soon as we have something, we'll for sure announce it. Matthew Connor, is there any room for some semi-custom basses? For example, could my dealer order an NG3 or a combustion set up for F-sharp standard, obviously for an upcharge? Yes, we actually do offer that service. COVID has it's made string supply very sketchy. So we do have F-sharp strings in stock, and then we use the four largest strings from our 5-string set. So we are able to create an F-sharp set for you and custom set up the bass for F standard tuning. And it works incredibly well. I think you'd really enjoy it. Matter of fact, I'd recommend that that's what you do rather than buying the bass and then taking it to a tech. We have all the tools ready to go, and we can do it quickly and efficiently and cost effectively. John is asking, does the angle of the pickups mathematically coincide with the fan fret angle, or were they placed purely from tonal standpoint? That is a very good question, because it doesn't look like they line up. But actually, in fact, so all of our pickups currently are a reverse P. And so if you took a look at where the coil for the bass side intersects with the B, and the coil for the treble side intersects with the G, and you drew a line through that, all the harmonics that line would cut through all the same harmonics on the strings. So actually they are located and rotated according to harmonics. And then we test the placement according to tone. We have it's called a test mule, and it's basically a Z body with a big hole in the center and a bunch of screw holes up and down. And we actually just move the pickup like a quarter inch. How does it sound? Move it a quarter of an inch. How does it sound? Move it a quarter of an inch. How does it sound? It's amazing how much difference a quarter of an inch of movement makes in the tone balance of the pickups, especially when you're combining two pickups. Wow, big difference. Mats is saying hello from Indonesia. Hey, Mats, nice to see you. Nice to chat with you. Frederick, mic-wise, I currently have an ESP Phoenix 2, hence the questions about dive, but I'm not a fan of the mics. It differs from where you play on the strings a lot. Is the Drock similar? And I assume by mics, I'm not sure. Are you calling it pickups mics or the strap? I think the pickups. Yeah, our string, the tone of our basses does change quite a bit where you play. So you will, on one hand, you'll have to be careful about where you play, but on the other hand, you have all kinds of expressive ability just by moving where you pluck the string. And a lot of guys really like that. Like you can get such a warm and cello-y tone by playing up by the neck, and then you can get this nice tight burpy tone closer to the bridge and anything in between. So yes, that is definitely one of the characteristics of our basses. They are very, you can manipulate the tone a lot just by where you pluck. Wage is asking true temperament basses. I'm not sure if one's been done. I know Strandberg does a lot. We haven't had anybody asking for one, and most of the comments I've seen have been, how would you refret it? Well, that's not that big a deal, because anybody who can do it, who's skilled with refretting, can probably bend the frets to be inserted back in. And this is a problem for 10 years from now, not any time sooner than that. So what am I saying? I guess I'm saying that we just haven't really gone down that road. probably won't for a while. Sorry, I mangled that. Apologize. New colors for the D-Rock standard soon. Yes, we've got some new colors that we will bring out. Maybe not too soon, but maybe within the next 12 months. The existing colors are selling really well, so we're not in a real hurry to replace them. But yes, we're always thinking several years out in terms of colors and in terms of models and designs and changes. Wesley is saying, I'm from Brazil. How can I buy a bass? That is a good question. We don't have a lot of representation in South America. We have Overdrive Music over in Santiago, Chile. So if you have any way of getting to Chile, I would absolutely recommend talking to Rod at Overdrive. If you have friends or relatives in the United States, then that would be the next option, would be to purchase through anybody in the Dingwall dealer network in the United States. I wouldn't recommend one over the other, but we have dealers in a lot of the major centers.
Also Mexico.
Mexico as well. I hate to say buy outside of your country, but until we have a dealer there, you're best off flying up, buying the bass, bringing it back as luggage. Nativ, I'm curious also about how the bass player for Gojira got to play Dingwall. I love it, and the sound is so much better. He was a Fender user for years. Well, thanks very much. I actually don't know. I believe Jam bought a bass on his own. And so I think he sort of came to us. We didn't pursue him, but love that band and love his playing. And so wouldn't it be cool if he would use our bass more? So we'll see what happens with that. I'm glad that you're liking the tone of his Dingwall and Dougal. How often does Leland Sklar have to refret his basses with those tiny frets? I am not aware of him ever refretting his bass. And he's been playing our basses, his red ones, since 1999. And he has some other basses that are even older than that. So really, the fret material is designed to be squished a little bit as you press the strings on it. And that squishing hardens up the fret material. It's called work hardening. And so even though the frets are quite soft, once you play on them, they kind of get grooves in them, they harden up, and then like they wear forever almost. So even with the tiny Mando frets, I would expect 5 years minimum, but more likely 10 years of use out of your bass. King Madero, sorry. Thanks for putting me in contact with the repair shop here in Tokyo. My combustion 6 is sounding better than ever. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Was that Hajime's shop that you took it to? Hajime is absolutely an amazing technician. And he's also our distributor in Tokyo and just a super cool guy. So I'm pretty sure it was him that we sent you to, and I'm glad you had a good experience. Callie is saying, how many of the Pink Swirl NGs were made? I heard it was limited run. Going off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think it was limited to either 50 or 100 pieces. 100 pieces, I think. The original matte pink was just 50 pieces, and we sold out like that. And so we wished we would have done a larger run. So with the matte pink swirls, I think we doubled the run, and it was 100 pieces. Man, I'm sorry. I've been ignoring all you guys. Robski is saying, have you ever heard about the new Ligma ball strings by Epiphone? I haven't actually. So now I'm going to have to look into those and see what they're about. Obviously, they must be cool. Otherwise, you wouldn't have mentioned them. Let me see here. Did you... Robski, is that a Lamborghini shirt? No, I have a Lamborghini shirt. I spent way too much money on it, and I feel guilty about that every time I wear it because, man, I can't eat because I'll spill something on it. But the Dingwall logo was inspired by Lamborghini, and Ferrari. And what's really interesting is if you take the Ferrari shield and the Lamborghini shield and superimpose them, they're very, very similar. It's almost like the Lamborghini shield is a mid-century modern version of the Ferrari shield. So I'll admit that's where we got it from. How is saying, when I bought my Dingwall, I was told it is the Afterburner 1.5 model. Is this a unique model that you just made? The Afterburner 1.5, I can't remember how many dealers we actually sold those to, but most of them would have gone to Jive Sound in Richmond, Virginia anyways. Super cool store. John Lee is the owner of the store. Had a chance to visit him when I was down in the DC area last year. Really enjoyed that visit. Really enjoyed Virginia. Holy cow, what a beautiful state. Anyways, kind of got off topic. The 1.5, the original Afterburner was passive only, and the 1.5 was our first step into making the active version of the Afterburner. So it was a passive Afterburner that we converted to an EMG 2-band circuit. So it is a very low number Afterburner. I don't think we built more than a dozen of them. So it is kind of a rare piece. And it led to the modern day Afterburners, which were completely active. So I hope you're enjoying that bass. RB is saying, greetings from the Philippines. Hey, how you doing? I like the bass behind you. I hope to have one soon. And so that would be a 4-string NG. I'm glad you like it. Or maybe you're talking about the gold 5-string. Both are really cool basses, and they're both right-handed. It just looks left-handed in my monitor. Tim is saying, any Finish videos on how you made Jacob's white Z3? How do you get the black grain to pop with the rich white color? We don't have any Finish videos on that. And I would love to answer that question, but that was Paul Hilliker, our finisher, that did that, and he did a really amazing job. And I'm sure it was not easy because everything Paul does is difficult. He's just wired that way. But he did an amazing job. There probably are Finish tutorials out there. Just look up Csa Finish. It's spelled with a C. And it's an old Finish. I think it came out of France, and it was popular, I think, in the late 1800s. So look up Csa, and you'll probably see a tutorial on that. The modern day Csa Finish is made popular by F-Bass, and F-Bass are the masters, and they would be the originators in electric basses as far as I'm concerned. So I am already owning an NG3 in Lamborghini Matte Orange, and I love it. Still hoping to someday get my hands on a Super PJ 5-string. Best regards from Germany, and keep up the good work. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate the comments, and I'm glad you're enjoying your NG. And that Lamborghini orange color, man, that was one of the first NG colors that we came up with, and it was a challenge. It took a year to figure it out. And then once we figured that out, we were able to figure out the good blue, and all kinds of colors came from that orange. But the orange was the first matte pearl color. And if you really want the background on that, the key came from looking at a shampoo bottle. One morning I was having a shampoo, and I looked at the bottle, having a shower, and I looked at the shampoo bottle and went, man, this bottle is pearlescent and it's matte. I wonder if that's how we can get a matte finish to look good. And that's so, thanks. I don't know, I can't remember what the brand was, but thank you, shampoo companies. We have 5 more minutes available for questions. I'll get through these as fast as possible, and I won't talk about shampoo anymore and waste your time on that. John Worthington, can Mando frets be spec'd on any domestic model? Not anymore, no, because they're a huge pain, and we've been getting so precise with our neck angles that the frets, even just the height of the fret, messes that up completely. And so they're only available on the Sklar. And that's kind of cool because that's kind of Lee's thing. Lee is the person who brought those over to us, and I'm perfectly fine with just leaving them exclusive to Lee. Jordy, hi from Mexico. What kind of paint do you use, poly or nitro? That's a really good question. We use polyester and polyurethane. The two are quite different. Typically, on modern finishes, the sealer is polyester because polyester, it's low VOC, so it doesn't pollute as much as nitro would. It also builds faster because it's a higher solids, meaning there are more molecules of paint compared to the number of molecules of solvent. So it's a really good sealer. And we also use that for our top coat on our gloss finishes because it's tough. It just takes abuse like you wouldn't believe. It's really hard to work with. It's not fun to spray, but the end result is that your base stays shinier for longer. Now, on the satin finishes, those are polyurethane. So we use the two. And if you wanted to spray your own instrument, I don't know, lacquer's pretty easy, but checks easily. Next up would be polyurethane, would be the next easier finish to spray. Just make sure that you're wearing the proper masks so that you don't breathe in the fumes, and don't do it in your basement because it's explosive. Anyhow, Jeremy Buswell, what made you finally give in to making left-handed models, and are there any plans to make on a more regular basis? Big love from Australia. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing? I guess, you know what the key was, is we were getting requests for left-handed basses, but we just had no way of doing it. And so I talked to the factory that produces the NGs and the combustions. And, that's one of the advantages of using the best factory in China, is that they have the best R&D team. And so they were like, yeah, we can do that. We'll make it happen. And so really that was the only way we could make it happen, was that they were willing to take on the project. Physically, we could not do it in Canada. When the D-Rock standard 5-string are going to be available in France? I hope soon. That's Malik. Yes, very soon. We're working out some shipping logistics right now. COVID has just been a nightmare in terms of not only supply, but also shipping. I'm glad I'm not in the shipping industry, but it has cost us a fortune because of the extra problems with shipping, and I'm sure it's cost everybody a fortune, and it's added incredible uncertainty to shipping times. But soon, very soon. Callie Page, do you have any exciting projects or upcoming news with Dingwall you could share before you go? Well, I'll share that we do have 8 new models that are being developed, and some of them are new models, and so with some of our really cool artists. We were having a meeting today, and we have a couple of new artists that Nick is talking to, and that's super exciting. And then Felipe is also working on another Dingwall jam, and so that should be released as well soon. And for me, those are super cool because it's just so cool to see our instruments used by so many different talented players all in one song. So that's cool, and that's about as far as I can share in terms of behind the scenes. Ray Salomon, thank you for the Q&A, Sheldon. Love every one of my Dingwalls, from the NG 10th anniversary up to my Prima artist. Awesome, Ray. Thank you so much. And man, that's our entire range right there. Hope to catch more of these Q&As as they happen. And, Ray, as soon as it's cool to travel, I know you're involved with, I think, the Seattle area bass get-togethers. Man, I would love to come down and hang out with you guys. So I'll be looking for that, the next one that's organized and it's safe to travel. If I can make it, I'll be down there and I'll hang out with you Seattle guys. So that is the end of our time. Thanks everyone for taking part. Great questions. We're going to try and keep track of all the questions that we missed, and so we'll be able to start up the next one with the ones we missed today. But take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.